This video is brought to you by my two books, Practical Music Theory for the Rock Guitarist and The Blues Guitar Bible. Want to learn about modes, harmony, scales, chord substitution and keys? Or maybe you're interested in supercharging your blues guitar rhythm and lead chops. Whatever you're interested in, I guarantee you will be hitting the fast lane to progress with either of these works. Both feature video demonstrations and tutorials, loads of tabs and jam tracks to play along with, and I promise you, everything is explained in crystal clear plain English. Check out the links in the description for more details. Hello chaps, welcome once again to John Robson Guitar Tuition. As always, I do hope you're well. It's Tuesday today, which means a top 5 list, and you've already seen the thumbnail and the video title, so I won't waste too much time with the preamble. Suffice to say that over the last couple of weeks, I've been looking at my top 5 blues solos played on a Strat, and my 5 favourite Telecaster blues players, or blues players who use a Telecaster, and today it's the turn of the Les Paul. We're going to talk about my 5 favourite Les Paul toting blues guitarists, starting with
Eric Clapton.
Eric Clapton. Had to be Eric. The Beano album, frankly. Do I need to say any more? Just his guitar tone on that album is, well, it's just textbook Les Paul into a Marshall, isn't it really? Thick and warm and ballsy, but still with sufficient bite and top end to it. Singing sustain, Eric's vibrato on this album is just, it's, as I say, textbook. I have said in the past that I don't think Eric's playing on this album is a finished product, and I stand by that. I think his playing is very much a work in progress on this album, but what a work in progress. I think he kind of finally matured and became the player that, well, I think of as being quintessential Clapton around about the time of the Layla sessions, but, you know, you simply can't ignore this album if we're talking about blues, and the Les Paul had to be on the list, and so did Eric. Next.
Peter Green.
Talking about hard act to follow, when you've got, graffiti daubed all over London, Clapton is God, based upon his prowess with the Les Paul and his Marshall in the Blues Breakers. Whoever was going to follow in his footsteps in that band had, a tough act to follow. Fortunately, we had an absolutely stellar guitarist on hand, Mr. Peter Green. Most people know Peter because of Fleetwood Mac and, Man of the World and Albatross, Need Your Love So Bad and stuff. And a significant number of people will know the work that he did with John Mayall's Blues Breakers. But if you're not familiar with it, then go and check out the album A Hard Road. It is the Blues Breakers follow-up album to the famous Beano album. And, Peter had a point to prove on this album. He had to kind of demonstrate that, yes, Eric isn't in town anymore, but, I am, and this is what I can do. Highlights on that album would be, obviously, The Supernatural, You Don't Love Me, The Stumble, fantastic version of that old Freddie King tune on there. And again, he's playing the iconic Greeny Les Paul. That's probably that guitar that you can see there, later on by another person who's going to get a mention on this list. You probably know who I'm talking about already. But yeah, Peter Green. Just a unique player. One of those. It's become something of a cliche to say, oh, you only have to hear one note and you can tell who it is. Well, with Peter, it's true. Genuinely true. He was such a magnificent player and a real sad loss, but, there's all that great music that he left us with. And once again, if we're talking about Les Paul toting blues guitarists, how can you not include Peter on the list? Next.
Gary Moore.
There he is. You knew he had to turn up, didn't you? Yes, Gary Moore. Ironically, I first got into Gary's playing in the 80s when I was at college, when Victims of the Future was his latest album, and there was nothing at all bluesy about that on the surface, you might think. But, there was just something about his inflection and his phrasing that set him apart from other 80s kind of shreddy metal kind of players. You could listen to Gary and hear something in his playing bluesiness, as it turns out, that wasn't there in the likes of Jakey Lee, for example, to my ears at least. And I had a VHS video of Gary doing an Irish tour. And there's a scene where he's doing some dates in Belfast and some live dates in Dublin, and I think it's in one of the Dublin shows. Phil Lynott comes out and they do Parisian Walkways, and there's some backstage footage of them jamming some blues, and it's fantastic. I thought, I wish he'd release an album like that, and lo and behold, that was 1985, I think. Lo and behold, 5 years later, that's exactly what he does. Still Got the Blues came out. A fantastic album. Just one of those, for me, it's up there with the Layla and Other Assorted Love Songs album, maybe Dark Side of the Moon, and, you know, well, Still Got the Blues. It's a classic album. It belongs on that sort of top shelf of absolute stonking good classic albums. And you know, and Gary did go back to his rock and kind of metal roots, well, not well his roots, but his past. He did revisit that past catalogue towards the end of his life, but it was always the blues stuff that I was interested in hearing from Gary, and you knew he had to be on this list, didn't you, if you've watched this channel for any length of time. Next,
Paul Kossoff.
Yes, Paul Kossoff. Not often thought of, I guess, as a pure blues guitarist, and there is some element of truth in that, but, you know, neither is Gary Moore, and we've just been talking about him. But that first free album, Tons of Sobs, and in particular, Walk in My Shadow, it's just epic. There's no other word for it. His tone, his phrasing, his vibrato, his just innate musicality and control of the instrument. And let's not forget that in those days, a lot of these records were made before the advent of master volume amps. You know, if you wanted it to get that warm kind of buttery, overdriven tone, then you had to crank the damn thing up incredibly loud, like ear-piercingly loud, you know, head-crushingly loud. And, you know, and it became a feat of physics in itself just to control a rig like that, you know, because it could all just at an instant descend into a cacophony of horrendous squealy feedback. So there's that to take into consider as well. And then when you couple that with the sensitivity and emotional content of what Paul could do on a Les Paul through the kind of Marshall rig that you can see behind him there, absolutely astounding, absolutely fantastic. Love his playing, and just, you know, I'll never tire of hearing Paul Kossoff play the blues on a Les Paul, hence why he's on this list. Next,
Christone Kingfish Ingram.
a relatively new discovery for me, Mr. Ingram. Christone Kingfish Ingram, big fella, big lad, but boy can he play. And it's fairly true that he's not necessarily always associated with a Les Paul, but, you know, there are plenty of pictures like this one of him playing a Les Paul. Looks like a lovely Black Beauty custom, that, doesn't it? You know, but he tends usually to favour some kind of twin humbucker guitar. You see him playing Fender Starcasters and Telecaster Deluxes. I think I've even seen some footage of him playing a Music Man Axis. But, you know, he always seems to get that beautifully bell-like tone out of a Les Paul. Very much one of those kind of players after my own heart that uses the guitar's volume control to sort of not have a sort of binary kind of, this is my clean sound and this is my lead sound. You know, it's just kind of, you can kind of dial in as much of that shoutiness and grit as you want at any given moment, and that seems to be a hallmark of his playing, and just a beautiful tone, especially when he likes to use the middle pickup setting whenever I've heard him do that. Just a fantastic player. Again, all the things I've said about all the other players on this list, you know, tone, phrasing, you know, vibrato, all that sort of stuff, all the essential ingredients of blues, basically, you're going to find, you know, aplenty in Christone's playing. And yeah, one of my students recommended some of his stuff to me, and I checked him out, and I'm really enjoying, and have been for a while now, that first album, Kingfish, and slowly checking out some of the others. But, you know, when you get kind of, an album is so good that you just kind of keep listening to that, and you think, well, okay, I'll get on to the rest of the stuff another time. But yeah, great player, great talent, great Les Paul sound, you know, and that's what this list is all about. And those ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, are my pick of my 5 favourite Les Paul playing blues guitar players. Make of them what you will. No doubt you have a similar list. Leave that in the comments down below. Or if you disagree with any of the choices that are on my list, then feel free to take issue with me down below. This is just a personal kind of thing, and it is a bit subjective about what actually constitutes blues. I think there might be 1 or 2 people who are going to shout at me for choosing Paul Kossoff or Gary Moore, but it is what it is. Anyway, hope you've enjoyed the video, and if that's the case, please hit the subscribe button and the notification bell if you haven't already done so, and why not drop me a like as well while you're at it. And don't forget the live stream every Friday 5 PM UK time. You know what happens? We drink beer and we talk about stuff, music, guitars, and pretty much anything else basically. It's a great way to kick off the weekend, and I'd love to see you there if you can make it. But for now, I'll bid you all a good day and say thank you so much for watching. Thank you for your time. Look after yourselves, folks. Stay well, stay safe, and above all, stay sane. Bye for now.